This was an interesting one because I feel like
it had so much better RWBY stuff.
The interpersonal RWBY stuff was really good. The fight scenes were really good. The comedy was on point. I enjoyed the animation. That Watts stuff was a little bit fucky.
I'm so, like, I'm angry about what they did. Like, I'm actually kind of pissed about that.
I mean, because I liked him. I liked how, like, above it all he was. I liked him as a villain that they had to fight.
Why are you butchering Watts at the 11th hour? Like, you finally had one good villain. One villain. People complained about Adam, right? Okay, people complained about Cinder, okay? You know, like, you had one villain that everybody could agree was a good villain that didn't die in some... I mean, some people didn't like how Watts died, but, like, again... You know, just to bring up Adam, people are like, Adam died and it was cheap and, like, they shouldn't...
Well, they were dumb and bad.
Like, no, but what I'm saying is, like, you finally had, right? People hate Cinder because they think that Cinder's incompetent and that she's, you know, like, she's always failing, like, she's girl failure and not, like, in a fun way, right? Like Emerald is not a villain anymore. Like, you know what I mean? And so, like, you finally had... People complained about Adam. People complained about Corsic and Finnick. People complained that Ilya got redeemed. People complained... Like, you know what I mean? You finally had one villain that everyone agreed was good, and you couldn't just leave it alone! Why? Why did you do that? Like, why did you need... He was fine.
I will say...
Fine how it was.
I will say, it would kind of make... Because he's a really petty person, so it would make more sense for him to digitize his brain and then go after Salem. And not go into a new world where he can control things.
Are the implications of this that Watts is gonna come back?
I think the implication is he's stuck in the mirror dimension and he's not coming back at all.
Because you can have multiple consciousness.
I
right?
guess, but but he's too much of an egotist. He would never make another Watts.
No. I don't think. I don't think
he would make another Watts.
I actually think that we could see Watts come back because of this.
I don't think they would do that.
I think that they would because, like, I understand what you're saying,
I want to go back to
like, he's stuck in the digital world or whatever. You just want to see the Bumblebee kiss?
Yes, I want you to screenshot the Bumblebee kiss for me.
I understand what you're saying.
I love how Yang's the one popping her leg up, where in Volume 9, Blake was the one popping her leg up.
But, like, that's just so fucked up now, because I understand that it's Watts' consciousness, so it's not real, but, like, that's not ethical to keep Watts in a computer. Like,
yeah,
you know what
but
I mean?
he also probably...
I know he's a bad person.
He also probably killed tens, if not hundreds of thousands of people.
I know. I just mean, like,
he can be in prison forever.
But that's not... I don't know. I don't know if the punishment fits the crime in that case.
Or you could just kill him.
Right. But I'm saying, like, they gave him a fate worse than death.
Yeah.
And that's a little, because, like, there's an entire Black Mirror episode about the cookies, right? The real people's consciousness that are trapped inside of the cookies, right? And so I'm not saying that, like, oh, Watts doesn't deserve it, but, like, at the same time, does anyone deserve it? Does anyone deserve to be trapped in a computer forever? At least people that go to jail die.
Maybe he'd be happy. Maybe he'd create his own world of his own creation.
Well, he's stuck with Kilgore, so I don't know.
Maybe him and Kilgore will like tape a line up the center of their computer
I guess.
world.
I mean, that's a very generous. But like.
Or they just delete it. I also love how grumpy Batman looks compared to everyone else.
I understand what you're saying, Hunter, that you don't think. But now they've opened up the floodgates,
But you're right, it is fucked
because
up. It is really dark.
That means that Watts could have a consciousness, or like even if he's trapped in there now, that doesn't mean that Salem couldn't get him out, right? Like just because they trapped him, it doesn't mean that
This is why I view
the relic of creation to create something that gets Watts out of the cyberspace to get him back. Why couldn't she do that?
This is why I view this the same way I view the comics, where it's like canon adjacent, where it happened unless you think about it too much.
But they're asking for it at this point.
They are absolutely asking for it.
Salem has the relic of creation that can create anything. So why can she not create something to get Watts out of the cyberspace and bring his ass back?
Unless she doesn't know. She just thinks he's dead and she doesn't think to look.
Yeah, of course. I mean, that's a possibility.
And they would never tell her.
No.
They're never gonna bring this up.
In theory, like, what if Watts was like, in case of my death, please? Like, you know what I mean? Like, what if Watts did leave something behind for Salem? Because, like, that's the other thing. I don't think Watts hates Salem this much. Like, it's kind of weird how they made it like Salem had no vision. Like, I don't remember him ever being that way in
I mean,
the show.
he was an egotist, and
Right.
he wanted revenge,
but he
and
never
Salem
thought
offered
that Salem
revenge.
didn't
Yeah,
have the
he thought
capacity, I don't
that
think.
way about Cinder.
Yeah.
He thought that way about Tyrion.
So, like, there's
but
some
he didn't
Salem
think that way about
slander. Like, you know what I mean? Like,
if anything, he wouldn't go to this world. He would stay on Remnant to kill Cinder.
yeah.
You know,
Well,
that's what would
I'm
happen.
like,
yeah.
okay, well, is Watts' consciousness gonna be
Yeah.
like, like, and come back?
Unless he's just
And
like,
tell
I am
Salem-
done with these people. I am moving to a new neighborhood.
I don't know.
You know?
Okay, Ruby's running out of villains. I don't want them to bring Watts back. But they kind of opened up the floodgates that Watts could come
They
back.
could bring
and
back
could tell
Merlot.
Salem.
What about
No!
this?
Merlot should have been the one in this movie because Merlot doesn't fucking matter. The
Well,
fact that
what
they
if-
put
yeah.
Watts here, like, okay, I don't
Merlot
like Watts
doesn't
that much,
matter.
but imagine if this was like Neo and Roman. Like, you know what I mean? Villains people actually
Well, that's
like. That would be
kind of how I feel
unacceptable.
about the Joker Harley cameo in this.
What do you mean?
Joker and Harley are pretty Roman and Neo.
Well, no, but what I'm saying is, like, okay, for the most part,
Because it's like, oh,
they
that would have
had
been
people
cool to
that
see
no
more
one
of them.
gave a shit about
Yes.
character assassination. You know, they
Yeah.
had Kilgore, they had Weather Wizard, they had Mirror Master. No one gives a fuck, right? Why can you come into our territory and assassinate our characters? Because something
Well,
I
we're
did
nice
hear,
to your characters.
yeah, like something I heard was that the Justice League people had more control over
I could see that.
the movie because, like, it's not taking place within
Mhm.
Remnant. But, like, you know, why do you come in here and you fuck up Watts? What right do you have? You know what I mean? Because it's not Eddie Rivas fucking up Watts. At least I don't think so. It's like these Justice League people. What gives you the right to come into our show and fuck with Watts? Why couldn't they fuck with Merlot? Why did it have to be Watts, Hunter? Why?
I think Watts being the bigger, more beloved character and not like the small niche character
But
like Merlot
he is
def-
beloved. And
Oh,
they-
no.
bullshit.
No, I get that, but what I'm saying is that
Yeah,
I think
I
in
know.
their head is like, oh, let's get the juicy
Like,
fish
Watts
and not the
actually-
like
yeah.
weird
But
niche
what
character.
Watts fan is happy about that? Like, I would love to know.
Yeah.
I'd love to know what Watts fan
I
is like
mean,
perfect, trapped in the
as
digital
a lover of
cyberspace.
Team RWBY, this movie gave me everything I
Oh
wanted.
yeah, of course, yeah,
'Cause,
yeah,
like,
for sure.
Yang
All of the
and
interactions were amazing.
Yang and RWBY were great. The kind of comedy stuff, like Weiss and Batman and Weiss considering her place in the world.
I mean, it
and,
was good lessons
mwah.
for all of them, right? And
It
hopefully
was-
we'll see more in
But
Volume
also just
10.
the interactions were great. I'm looking at the second Bumblebee kiss.
Yeah, I
Uh,
like that was amazing. Like that's where I was like, yeah, this movie is better than the first one. Like for that, but like, yeah, the Watts thing just.
In my
can't.
head, Blake is grabbing Yang's ass with the hand we
Oh
don't
my
see.
God. But
In my heart and in my mind.
yeah, like all that was
And in
really
my
good.
soul.
And I feel like that's because, like, in the
I
first
had a good
movie,
time.
Justice League was learning the lessons,
Yeah.
right? Superman was learning, and, like, Green Lantern had a panic attack, and John helped. Like, that was the whole thing, right? So in this one, they wanted to focus on Team RWBY's character development, and it's all really, really good. And again, hopefully something that we'll see in Vacuole.
Oh,
Hopefully it's not
yeah.
just in this form, right? But, like...
Well, because
I'll
feel
never
like
forgive you. Because here's the thing. Here's my problem, Hunter, is like, people are always like, oh, I don't like Roman holiday, so I'll just ignore it. I can't do that. Like, for some reason, like, the way that I'm wired, I can't. Like, I love fan fiction. I love making stuff that's not canon. Like, you guys know this, right? I love, like, oh, you know, if you're remaking Death Note, why not make it different? Like,
Yeah,
I'm the
yeah.
first person to say that you don't have to stick to the source material. But when it comes to the canon of the show, I cannot simply be like, I don't like that, so I'll pretend it didn't happen. You know what I mean? And like, this is side material, so let's pretend. No, it did happen. And I have to think about the fact that it happened. Like, I have to live. It's not
I
that
have to
dramatic,
live in
but
this
I have to
world.
live with the fact that it happened, right? Like, I love remaking stuff. I love alternative canon, but they said that the movies are canon, which means that this event is canon, and Watts lived and died again. And they don't even have any connection to Watts. They never met Watts. None of them should give a single fuck.
I will say about the like character development stuff, a lot of it was cute, but a lot of it was unessential. Like RWBY being too brash and too forward and too willing to get into fights and da-da-da-da-da. That was more Yang's thing than RWBY's thing.
Well, I think that's what they're making the point
yeah,
of,
so
though.
it's very contained into this season. It's not like a long arcing.
It's like that meme with the two people on the bus and one of them sees the happy
Yeah.
window and one of it's like nothing matters. Nothing matters. Right?
But I also feel like they picked that just because this they didn't do a bunch. It's not like the first Bumblebee kiss was that one, you know? It's like they integrated a not totally important, still like appreciated and still nice,
Yeah.
like character moment and character arc, miniature character arc for all these characters that are kind of inessential to the broader story.
I mean,
which which I think leads my belief of like, oh, it helps me like compartmentalize this as its own thing.
I see a more middle ground, Hunter. I think that these things are going to come up again. They just may come up differently. You know, like,
this will come up in RWBY Chibi if they ever do another RWBY
Like
Chibi,
I'm saying, like, for example, Weiss's thing about like home not being where the kingdom is. Like I know that they address that, but I think that it's a middle ground between essential and not essential. I think that like yes, Weiss learned the lesson, but when we get to Vacuo, everybody's gonna hate the Schnees, and that's gonna be the thing. Like, she's still, and even RWBY being brash, like, yeah, like, right now, she's like, Yang, don't worry, I'm not gonna end up like Mom, but, like, in the case where they, I don't know, I'm just making shit up, but, like, what if they're like, oh, yeah, the Silver-Eyed Warriors are the only thing that can kill Salem? Like, RWBY may have that sort of martyrdom again. So, like, I know what you're saying, like, this idea that, like, yeah, it was all appreciated, but, like, the things that they covered probably aren't gonna come back. I kind of disagree. I do think that they're gonna come back, but it's like step 2. You address the first part, but like you didn't address all of it. Like I don't think that RWBY's martyrism is gonna go away. I don't think that like Weiss's home thing, it's just gonna manifest in the show differently and build off of this point, but you wouldn't need to know about the movie in order to appreciate what they're gonna do in the future fall. Does that make sense?
That's, yes,
you know
that
what I
makes
mean?
sense. Yeah, that makes sense.
And so that's why I'm like, but it is, because it's volume 9. Stuff is like they're clearly going from the consequences of volume 9, and this stuff will surely still exist in volume 10, but like, you know what I mean? So yeah, it's sort of a middle ground where I'm like, these are not entirely self-contained, because it will bleed into, they are gonna be like, oh yes, like Superman told me like I shouldn't be brash anymore. They're never gonna say that in the main show. But, like, I do think that it is going to come up. Like, I don't think we're done with some of these things. Some of these issues, we're not done.
I mean, we'll never find out unless they greenlight Volume 10, which, oh my god, I do not want this to be the last RWBY thing I ever watched.
Absolutely not.
I enjoyed it.
Oh, yeah, it was fun.
Fuck, man,
I had a good time.
I wouldn't survive, though.
I'm not really a fight scene person. A lot of the
there is a lot of fight scenes.
It was a lot. We were just kind of like...
And they were good.
How do I react to this?
They were good, but it was almost too much.
Yeah.
And so after a while, you almost become numb to it, where it's constant
all of
fighting.
The character moments were bangers. Like, this is what the people want. They want RWBY to talk. I mean, not to Superman, but they want like these conversations, right?
It felt because it was not in the RWBY world.
It felt a lot like early RWBY
but
in a sense, right?
It was more of the RWBY thing. It also kind of felt like a later John Wick movie where there was so much fighting where it was like, okay, I need a fucking break. Like, there's a reason why movies aren't just all fight scenes.
Yeah.
It's like after a while your brain starts to melt and it's like, yeah, this is just more shit happening and it's just washing over me. You need those quieter moments of punctuation.
But, I mean, they had a lot of those quieter moments, but then at the end,
it felt a little grueling, but not grueling. It just felt like a little... The pacing was a little there, but also I was still invested. I was still having a good time. The fight scenes were still there.
But like that moment
enjoyable.
of Yang talking to Flash and like Batman talking to White, like all that stuff felt like the burning candle. I was talking about this on Twitter, but we never get that shit anymore.
Yeah.
You know, like even Volume 9, which was supposed to sort of reduce the cast and allow more times for characters to talk to each other, like I love Volume 9, but like we didn't really get that.
We didn't get a lot of things from Volume 9, as we all know now.
Volume 5, and people being like, they're just sitting around the house. Like, that's a valid criticism. I get it, because some of Volume 5 is boring, but, like, I feel like that somehow... That was the domino effect, that now the characters never talk to each other.
There's no burning
and it's because of the fan reaction to Volume 5. And some people may be like, well, the writers are dumb for not being able to tell the difference between what's worth sitting down for, but, like, I don't know, like, I'm just...
I also think Volume 9 did have some talky moments, and they did work under a condensed...
Yeah.
And also Volume 8 and Volume 7 were so, like, manic in their...
Yeah.
In their,
But you know what I mean? Like, I feel like I could draw
pace.
a direct link between they're just sitting in the house and
To
the fact that we never, like, get that
a burning
conversation,
candle, yeah.
a burning candle moment anymore. You know? And, like, maybe it's also just, like, that the plot... I mean, this is, I guess, a problem with later RWBY, not to, like, go on a whole tangent, but I was thinking about this recently, and it's like, you can't ever take a break because the villains aren't, right?
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean? And, like, other shows are like that, too, to some extent, but, like, I don't know what would be a
I feel like
good
if we did get a
comparison.
Volume 10, we would get some nice moments like that.
Yeah. But it's
Which
just, like...
is why we will create
Because Salem
Volume
is
10.
always going to be putting pressure on the cast. That's why Volume 4 was different because they hadn't encountered Salem. But as soon as you get into Atlas, it sort of becomes a problem because she's always putting pressure on the cast, so the cast can't afford to take a break.
I enjoyed myself.
Yeah!
In spite of everything.
I wouldn't
spite of
watch
some of the
this
fuck-
without Hunter, though. Like, I wouldn't... Like,
Did I pressure you into
I don't
watching
know.
this?
No. I mean, like...
Again.
I just don't know, like, anything about these
Oh yeah, I mean,
right?
I guess
like,
if you
that's kind of hard for me.
I'm in a helpful position of having a pretty strong
Yeah.
understanding of RWBY and a fairly strong
Do not
understanding
clip
of
the
the
fact
Justice
that
League.
I said that Black Cat and, who
You have a Black Cat and Catwoman.
are the same.
Black
Please
Cat
don't.
is Spider-Man, Catwoman
Yeah.
is Batman.
Yeah, that's what I'm
Oh, yeah,
saying.
yeah,
like,
yeah.
you know, this isn't a proper review. Like, I'm not gonna.
But like
we
they
just
understand our
talked,
feelings
right?
about
Yeah,
it. I
yeah.
feel like better than a numeral score. I think
Yeah.
this communicates our
I
feelings
agree.
about
So
it.
we'll probably release this separately,
Yes.
at least. But just keep in mind that this is not a polished review. This was Hunter and I shooting the shit after we watched the movie.
Yes.
Right. So anyway, sad about Watts. I don't even care about Watts that much. I just think it's a crime to writing.
I mean, it's a little messy.
I think it's just
But
criminal.
also, I feel like a lot of superhero stories are a lot of like timey-wimey techno-babble
I know,
gobbledygook,
but like
and that's
they
kind
didn't
of
even
that.
try to make us
Yeah.
understand. I don't understand anything actually. Like I have literally.
It got
I
a
don't
little
understand how the
fucky-wucky there
Grimm
for a
still
minute.
got to the real world at all. Like
Yeah.
because the world is real, but Watts wasn't real. Like if it was the digital world, I'd be like, okay, so they're digital Grimm. I still don't understand.
It's because they say that like their power manifested them in the world, which is a lame explanation. But
I
once
don't
again, it's like
understand.
gobbledygook superhero stuff.
Okay, bye.
Greenlight Volume 10.